Welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I am your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group. And here we have with us today, Terrell Turner. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Great, great. I'm so glad Terrell is here with us today. He is the owner of the TL Turner Group. So we are going to dig in a little bit more about him and his firm and what they do. But I just want to welcome everyone to the video podcast here. Here at the Analytical Rewired, we talk about all things dealing with our left brain and right brain. So the technical and the creative, and what we have to do to think differently or rewire our brains. So let's dig in with Terrell here. Terrell, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Yes, so my background is accounting and finance. I probably can say I've always been more of a analytical person. I think even, going to school, math was kind of the subject I liked more than the creative classes and the creative discussion. So, accounting was a great field for me. From college, went straight into working for one of the big four accounting firms. Did some, worked there for a couple years, and then I moved over to industry, working with a couple of industrial manufacturing companies, worked with a couple Fortune 500 companies, did different roles in the US, and moved down to South America, lived and worked there for a little bit, and came back to the US, got married, worked for another company, and then I decided, back in 2020, now is the time for me to really focus on building my own company. And so that's what I've been doing since 2020.
Wow, I didn't realize it was 2020 because I think that's when you and I met. I think it was in early 2020.
Yes, it was in 2020. Yeah. So I started back in April of 2020.
Okay.
And I think the reason why we met is because that's when I realized, my background is more analytical. And that was a comfort zone for me. But when it comes down to building a business, you have to pull on the creative side of your brain a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
lot more. And one of my creative exercises is how you and I met.
Yes, we did. We did. And that leads me to my next question. It was, how did we connect? Because I believe it was through LinkedIn, through a guest on your show, Business Talk Library.
Yes. And so, yeah, so I, back in 2020, when everything was pretty much shutting down, because prior to that, I had, being an analytical person, I had actually set up meetings with different accountants, CPAs, and fractional CFOs before I left my full-time job. And I just had a conversation with them. Some of them at the time we could go to lunch in person, and then others I had a phone call with them. And I just asked them what it was like, what were some of the things that they did to build their business. And a lot of them said, they did things like they went to networking events and stuff like that. So I was really analyzing my options before I made that decision. And so when I made that decision and then the pandemic hit and everything started shutting down, that's when I'm like, okay, all right, now that you're an entrepreneur, you got to get creative. So I decided to start a podcast of interviewing other business owners. And in the process of doing that, I interviewed, I believe it might have been Desmond Wiggins. You saw that post, you commented on it, and then that's how we eventually connected.
Yes, we did. Wow. It's crazy that that's already been 2 years ago. Time is just
Yes,
flying by. Seriously. Um,
absolutely.
so in your journey of where you are now, let's go back many, many moons now. What made you interested in finance and accounting? So you mentioned you were good in math, you had that analytical mindset, but what about statistics? What about engineering? Why finance?
Yeah, so one of the things I will say is I enjoyed math more than, more the other subject matters at the time. Now, I quickly learned when I got into high school because I was in advanced math class, and I will say I wasn't the best student. And to illustrate that point a little bit more, like whenever we had to, like, I was in, you say, more advanced math classes, but I was taking remedial English classes because I didn't realize when we used to get those standardized tests in South Carolina, when I got to the English portion, I really didn't take it serious. I just marked anything so that I could be done and then go to, go to the gym, or I can go to football practice or something.
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
know that they were using those scores to determine what class I would go into next. And it wasn't until like one of my English teachers was like, you are like blowing this class out of the water with an A plus. You have the best grades in this English class, this remedial English class. And I can tell you're not even putting in effort. Like, why are you here? And then that's when I told him, and he was like, all right, we're going to change that. And he was like, regardless of your scores, we're going to move you up. So like I said, I was always in advanced, math classes. And it wasn't until I got to calculus that I realized I don't like math that much. Like, I like.
You realize you're talking to an engineer here, right?
Yeah, so that's where
we love calculus.
Like, that's why I realized, like, I love math, like algebra, geometry, but up to a certain extent, which to me gave me some of that indication of, like, everyone says, oh, you like math, you should be an engineer. But I'm like, I don't like it that much. Like, what kind of professions like math, a little more than the average person, but not as much as an engineer? And finance and accounting was kind of in that middle ground. I'm like, that's probably where I should be, because I like it more than the average person, but not as much as an engineer. Because when I got to calculus, I was just like, okay, all right, this is the end of my math line for me. I do not need to go any further.
Oh, so much potential. So much potential. So yeah, we refer to you all as bean counters. That's how we describe you people, you accounting and finance people. I guess throughout the years, right? So you've been in the industry for a while. How have you seen your profession shift over the years? Like what has really turned the needle in finance and accounting?
Yeah, I definitely think the biggest thing is, the expectations that people have of their accountant, their finance person, because I think historically, and even when, I took my first, bookkeeping kind of accounting class, actually when I was in high school. And back then we were still doing it on, ledger paper. So big green sheet of ledger paper, writing out numbers and columns. And that's how I learned some of the basics of bookkeeping. And so back then, the profession really didn't have the bandwidth to do anything other than count beans in the background, or maybe read the tax code. And so historically, the expectation has been is they're going to be doing a bunch of stuff in the background. No one really understands what they're doing. Every now and then, maybe, once a quarter or twice a year, they come out of their dark room, they, answer a few questions about taxes, and then they go back into the background. Whereas now the expectation, I think that a lot of business owners, business leaders, and even just, I worked with a ton of engineers when I worked at General Electric, of a lot of the things that they were trying to figure out, where they had to make business decisions. And so they needed to understand, well, what are the financial implications of this decision? Or option A versus option B. And that's where I think, the accounting profession has had to come out of the back room where they used to just count beans and, keep to themselves, to where now they have to become more proactive and come closer to the front line of the business. And I think it's been interesting because there are a lot of accountants. I would say most accountants are still kind of struggling with that transition.
Yeah.
And I think there are some accountants who are kind of embracing it, like, hey, I want to be part of and more active part of the business. So that's definitely probably the biggest change for my profession.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, because we've worked with a couple here or there in the 5 years we've been in business. And now, you've been helping us so much here at the MJW Group, and we've totally shifted our mindset about just the education and the questions. We're more, I would say, educated and know what to ask and what we're looking at, especially in financial statements and other statements that are being, put in front of us. Whereas I think before, business owners kind of just maybe swept it under the rug and just always wanted to know that person had it under control. I think where we are now, it does forces you to ask more questions, to challenge what you're seeing per se, versus just taking your accountant's word, which is good. I think there should be that equal collaboration on both sides. So yeah, I can definitely see that. And there are some accountants who probably aren't ready to be more forefront, right? In the beginning, versus how they've, typically conducted their practice.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think that for a lot of accountants, I mean, the reality is some of them picked that field because it was something that provided secure job security, because an accountant was always in need,
Yeah.
and you really didn't have to interact with people that much. I mean, it was you, your calculator, maybe your spreadsheet, and you can sit in your own solitude. That I will say, in a lot of cases, some of the people who chose to go in accounting they're not very, personable. I mean,
Mm.
the people skills is not something that they really
Yeah.
aim to develop. And I think it was before the field of accounting was perfect for that, because the whole industry was kind of focused on doing that. But I think now that things are changing, a lot of people are, feel like, well, I'm too far along into my career to change,
Mm.
but I don't know if I really like where this is going. And so a lot of people are finding themselves in a tough spot when it comes to accounting. Whereas I think the people who really do want to get involved and say, hey, I really want to help my clients make some smart financial decisions, those are the people that I think are definitely thriving and going to continue to thrive.
Right, right. I agree. And I think we both can agree that technology has played a part in that, data as well. Um, the amount of information we're collecting nowadays is astronomical. But even in your industry, I'm just going to pick on Intuit, like what they've been able to accomplish over the years is it's like wow. Like you said, you learn by hand how to do accounting. And I can remember my mom, she used to bring those sheets home because she was in the accounting department as well. And yeah, it's just amazing how much technology has played a role into allow accountants and people in your profession to do things a lot faster, and probably somewhat error proof. Would you agree?
Oh, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that, technology has made us faster, and not only just faster in getting the work done, also thinking getting the information out. Because,
Hmm.
before, and I remember even when I was in college, I had interned at a CPA firm, and they were an old school regional CPA firm in South Carolina. And literally, I mean, it was still at the point where during tax time, they would do the tax return, and my job was to be the courier, to where I would get this package and I'd have to go drive it over to the doctor's office, and
Oh,
that was their
wow.
tax return. That was all of their financial information in that envelope, to where it's like now at the push of a button, you can share data, you can communicate and stuff like that. And I think, since, business owners and non-accountants and non-finance professionals, they have access to the financial information faster. So now they're in a position where they can get it faster, they can look at it, and then they have time to ask questions. And I think
Right.
accountants, some are doing really good with having thought through some of the questions that they know that they're going to get and being prepared to be able to answer those. And then others are kind of like, you asked me a question. I didn't expect you to ask me a question. I just expect you to take the report and just be okay.
That's probably me. So let's get into some nitty gritty here. Cash flow and profitability. I know those are two very distinct words that you use a lot. Why are they important to any business owner?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, the first I'll say the difference. Profitability is pretty much, whatever your sales are, your revenue is for your business, minus whatever your cost, that equals your profitability. So it just says, hey, your revenue is higher than your expenses. Now, cash flow, on the other hand, looks at the actual cash that comes in and out of your business. And the
Mhm.
reason why it becomes very important is because, especially as you grow, when you're doing business with other businesses, what tends to happen is you send them an invoice, so you earn the revenue, but they don't pay that invoice immediately.
Right.
And a lot of people look at their profit and say, well, we're very profitable. Well, you can be profitable and still go bankrupt if people aren't paying their invoices. And so that's why I think the cash flow has to be something people look at along with profitability. Now, what I will say is that, you know, you can get cash flow from people paying their invoices, or you can go get loans, or like say, you can use some creative financing strategies to get cash flow. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as a business, you want positive profitability and you want positive cash flow. So you want both of those things to exist in a positive way in your business. And I think if you're not keeping an eye on them, then it's almost like having a business that has a huge vulnerability, because if you're not profitable, eventually you're going to run out of cash. But if you are profitable, but you don't have good cash flow, eventually you're going to run out of money, which means your business is going to go bankrupt.
Right, right. And so with those companies who have a longer of an accounts payable process, right? So say it's typically, I don't know, 60 days, but they're not collecting until day 90. What are some things they can do to get on the other side of getting their cash a lot faster?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and this may sound very basic, but the first thing is definitely you got to actually pay attention to it. Because what ends up happening for a lot of companies that, they send out an invoice and their invoice is due in 30 days or something like that. When people don't pay, the question I always ask them is, do you have a process for identifying who is late? And after you identify that, what's your process to actually pick up the phone and call them or send them a reminder? Because even some of my customers, and I would say even myself, with some of my vendors, where they would reach out to me like, hey, just want to give you a heads up about the invoice. And what we found out is they had the wrong email address that they were sending it to. So it wasn't that I wasn't trying to pay them. It's just I never got their invoice. But then, them following up allowed them to be able to collect. And I think a lot of times, businesses overlook that simple step of just making sure you understand who hasn't paid, and then have a process to actually follow up. Because people that you're doing business with, if they have good intentions and you're doing business with reputable people,
Mhm.
like they want to pay you. And it's not like they're just avoiding you. But I think the first thing is really just, making sure that you have a process to identify who hasn't paid, and then have a process for how do you reach out to them and follow up.
Yes, I can totally agree. And you're saying one of my favorite words of all time, which is process. So with anything, there has to be a process. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because at its simplest, I mean, you can just create a reminder on your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar. It's like time to look at outstanding invoices and follow up, with clients. So that can be a process. So it's very simple to create processes. I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with the word process because it seems like so massive. But it could just be simple tasks, simple reminders that you are doing to remind yourself to collect your money. I mean, Why wouldn't you want to collect your money? So,
Absolutely. And you know, the truth of it is I've been guilty of that myself, where I've been so busy doing other things. And at one point, I didn't have a process to follow up with some clients. And then I look up and hey, this client is 3 months behind. And it's like, all right, Terrell, how did you let this happen? And it really just came down. I didn't have a process at the time.
right.
And so then I went back and it's like, okay, all right, what kind of process do we have in place? And I didn't have the money at the time to hire an extra person. So
Hmm.
then we switched over to using a billing system that could set up automatic reminders.
Yes.
And I think in just figuring out, like you said, I think what you said is phenomenal, because I think any business that grows to any size of, of success, it is a lot of it is because they have processes in place. And I think finance is not no different. You need to have processes in place. And the more you can have automated processes in place, I think will help you even more, because then you don't have to be the process isn't dependent on you to remember if it is something that's automated.
Right. I mean, you're singing in my ears right now. Automation process, like, oh, I just love it. I love it. Um, where you are now, 2 years fast forward, right, from 2020. What is the sweet spot for you and your firm? Who do you like to work with now? And what would you I guess when would you say a business should reach out to you? If someone's listening to this now and they're saying, I know I need to get my finance or my accounting, my books in order, like what is that sweet spot for you now?
Yeah, so one of the things that, we have seen over, over the time of being in businesses, as we've grown and as we have evolved, so has our target audience. I mean, right now, I would say, our sweet spot are usually with service-based businesses, and specifically, we work with a lot of law firms, we work with a lot of agencies, and then also other consulting firms, we work with a lot of, and a lot of that has to do with because their business is very similar to our business. And in knowing our business and how it operates, we understand, the financial and the accounting processes that need to be in place for these other types of service-based businesses. And then also, I think that when it comes down to a revenue size, I would say, our clients are usually ranging from about 300K in revenue and up. Now, of course, our larger clients are usually going to get more of like, they're going to need more of the full CFO type services we
Hmm.
offer. And then some of the smaller ones may just need bookkeeping and regular financial reporting, which is something that we've kind of created in our kind of service offerings to be able to provide that, because our goal is really to help businesses get the financial information they need to continue on that growth trajectory.
Right, right. Okay, good. What are one or two things you've had to rewire or change about your business since you started it?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and I recently did a post on LinkedIn about this, was I had to realize what we really do offer. Like, what are we really selling? Because for the longest, like, oh, we sell bookkeeping and CFO services, and I look at other accounting firms and like, oh, we sell, accounting services, and I realized after talking to so many clients, I realized that is not at all what we sell. What we really sell is financial confidence. Because
Mhm.
what I find that I spend more of my time doing now, especially now, is being on the phone with some of our clients, and we're talking through a potential deal that they're looking at. And it's really helping point out the financial blind spots that they have, and then also making some recommendations kind of moving forward. And for them, it's like, they're not paying me to do all the technical stuff in the background. What they really care about is, are they getting the reports in a way that help them confidently make forward looking decisions? And so that's where, for me, I had to really rethink and realize I'm not selling the services, the technical skills. What I'm really selling is the ability to help people have confidence when it comes down to making business and financial decisions. And that was a huge change because most
Yeah.
of my competitors, they don't look at it that way.
Right. They may only focus on the delivery, right? Like, what am I physically handing over to the client? But I definitely like how you've articulated that and packaged it a different way. And that's definitely going to set your firm apart from everyone else because you're right, you do. I'm a testament of it. So you definitely do what you just mentioned. And I love that how you've realized that pretty early on, because some people don't realize that for some time. And they're like 20 years down the line, they're figuring out, how do I rebrand myself to keep up with the competition or have that competitive advantage over other firms? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's, for me, it's been, one of the privileges of hosting a podcast, of talking to so many business owners, that don't have a finance and accounting background, and just learning of, what are some of their pain points. And for me, it's really going back to that basic thing of,
mhm.
you know, uh, people are buying a solution to the problem that they are trying to get over. They are not trying to buy your technical skill. One is they don't understand your technical skill. And if you try to put your technical skill on, let's say, a marketing ad or whatever, you're going to go right over people's head. What people are really buying is the solution to the pain that they believe you can help them solve. And so when we really started to rethink through everything that we're doing, and the way we create a lot of the free content, and also the way that we create, some of our on-demand courses, and even some of the services that we offer. Because even though, like I said, we work with, a lot of service-based businesses kind of at the 300K and above, one of the things that we started offering is kind of the consult services for different firms that are like, hey, you guys are a New York Times recognized firm. We know you're good at what you do. Terrell is a 40 under 40 CPA in America. We know you're good at what you do, but we can't afford to hire you ongoing. And so one of the things that we started doing is, well, how about we just do a consult to where we'll help you lay out your accounting process, and you can just go ahead and take this roadmap to any other bookkeeper you want to work with, and you can just share the roadmap with them. Because one of our goals is really just helping people get
Mhm.
confident about, their finances, and helping them kind of clear up some of those misunderstandings. So for even businesses that aren't quite at that revenue level where we usually work with, we still offer some type of consulting services with them. And what some of them have done is, they've said, hey, we just want to consult because they want to do their accounting and their bookkeeping themselves. And we're like, hey, we can help with that. We'll provide some context for you, and we'll fill in some gaps that you may have and help you understand things you don't. Because at the end of the day, our goal is not just to be your accountant. Our goal is to help you solve the financial pain that you're feeling. And maybe that's us doing it in-house, or maybe that's us just giving you some guidance to help you do it in-house or do it yourself better.
Man, I don't even know how many bars you just dropped. Jeez. I hope everybody was paying attention to what he just said and rewind this if you didn't. I mean, geez, that's a lot of gems, and I can definitely respect that. The approach that your firm is taking to definitely deliver that confidence. And then you're also still extending an olive branch to those who may not be able to be in a position to afford you right now, but they realize the importance of having someone like you in their on their team. And it's part of, I don't know, I call it part of your squad, right? You need that squad because we don't have all the answers. And I say all the time, no one has arrived. I don't know everything there is about finance and accounting. I don't want to know. I'm an operations person. So I would gladly pay to have someone in my corner that's, giving me guidance and advice on, those blind spots, like you mentioned, that I'm just not going to know. So I definitely respect that.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that that becomes something that I had to learn as a business owner of getting used to, because even when it came down to things like marketing, where at first I'm like, I can't afford to pay somebody, to hire somebody to manage my marketing. And one of the things that I realized is like, it's real, just pay somebody a couple $100
Yeah.
to help you set up a framework or a strategy, or to answer some questions, as opposed to you spending hours going and trying to figure it out on your own. Because every hour you spend trying to figure this out on your own is an hour you don't have to grow your business. And I realized
Yeah.
that, you know what? There's no way that I'm going to save my way to a bigger business. Like, I'm going to have to grow my business. So let me pay a consultant, hire somebody that can help me understand something that I don't, so then I can dedicate more time to actually growing my business.
Another bar. Another bar was dropped. I really hope y'all are paying attention, like seriously. And then, you guys can catch up with Terrell on LinkedIn. I'm sure we're going to leave his LinkedIn information, because he does provide a lot of valuable content that is free. Like he mentioned, it's free. So it would be advantageous of you to take advantage of it. Terrell, is there anything you like to share or give the audience? It could be discount code, promotion, digital download, anything of the sort. I can leave it in the show notes for the
Yeah.
audience.
So what I will definitely say is, I agree with you on the free content. We're continuing to put out more free content. And I know a lot of it has been interviews and conversations. And one of the things, by, personal interest and popular demand of, really, we spend a lot of time helping people understand how to tell the financial story of their business, or if they're looking at a business opportunity, like how to look at it from a financial perspective. So one of the things that we are releasing and we are doing is, we're going to be doing a new series, and I'm just going to be taking I'm going to start off with Shark Tank, to where taking pitches that people have done in Shark Tank and just break it down from a financial standpoint.
Ooh.
Hey, this is why the shark said no to this deal. And hey, if you're pitching your business, here are some things you need to keep in mind. To where we're going to start doing stuff like that. And I would say the offer is, if there is a industry that you are interested in, and I'm only saying this on this show, if there is an industry that you are interested in, just send me a message on LinkedIn. And what we will try to do is, we'll try to find a business similar to that industry, and then we'll talk about it, from the CFO's perspective of like, hey, if you were starting a business in this industry, here are some of the critical financial things that you want to make sure that you keep in mind. And so if you're listening to this show, send me a message. And like I said, our team will work on trying to get your industry interest into the show and give you some more free tips and insight on things that you might want to know about the CFO's perspective about your business.
Well, there you have it. You heard it here first on the Analytical Rewired. I love that idea. Oh my goodness. Can that be for any stage business owner or entrepreneur, or are we talking early stage?
So it's going to be any stage, because we've been, over the past year, we've been actually contacted by several of the business centers throughout North Carolina that have asked us to do special consulting with business owners throughout North Carolina. We've also been asked from business centers, across the U.S., to ask us to come in to do special seminars and workshops and stuff. And so we're going to open it up to where some of it is going to, like, some of the episodes we're going to talk about an early stage business. And in some, we're going to talk about more advanced businesses. And, and we've seen it a lot. I mean, even from my own personal experience of working with startups to, being the director of finance for, a $14 billion company. So our experience spans, and I've seen a lot of stuff. So we're going to try to really give people a lot of value for early stage as well as growth stage businesses.
I definitely love this idea. So I hope everyone takes advantage of the offer that Terrell just laid out for you. Definitely. As we wrap up here, Terrell, where can the audience find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so if you go to a LinkedIn, you can search for Terrell A. Turner CPA. I'm usually pretty active on LinkedIn. Plus, my virtual assistant has access to my LinkedIn. So if you're sending me a message there, you got 2 chances of somebody on our team seeing it. And then also on our website, the TL Turner Group. So if you go to the tlturnergroup.com, there's also a button there where you can contact us, and multiple people on the team have access to that. So, you run a better chance of getting the message seen. Now, I am on Facebook and Instagram. If you send me a message there, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm probably not going to see it right away.
Thanks for being honest. Any last parting words for the audience?
Yeah, I would definitely say I think that when it comes down to finance, it can be a bit intimidating. And I think part of that is the fault of, as we talked before, is the accounting profession. Because in some ways, out of this weird sense of job security, accountants have made finance more complicated than it needs to be. But what I would tell business owners, and what we try to do in a lot of our content, is we try to help business owners understand it doesn't have to be that complicated. We can break things down, we can make it simple. And I will say is, if you're working with an accountant that is not helping break it down and make it simpler for you, it might be time to consider looking at a different accountant. Because as you're making, business decisions and you're trying to grow your business, like, you already got enough complicated stuff to deal with. You don't need to be paying someone to make things more complicated. That person you're paying to, support your business from an accounting and finance standpoint should be helping take the burden off and make things simpler. So I would definitely say is that it can be simplified, and it is a journey. So don't beat yourself up if you don't know right away. It is a journey. I mean, if you think about it, most accountants probably spent years learning before they even started practicing accounting. So, don't beat yourself up if you don't know it right away, but just allow yourself to learn over time and find an accountant who will help you go through that education journey, because that's what's in your best interest as a business owner.
Another bar just dropped. I love it. I love it. Oh, thank you so much, Terrell, for being here with us today. I hope the audience was able to get quite a bit of value out of this discussion. I know I have, definitely. And I wish everyone, especially Terrell and his firm, great success as they continue to grow. And I know you all will definitely continue to grow, because you just have some very great ideas that I haven't seen other accounting firms do. They have not like gone down this road less traveled. And that's what I really admire about you all, just with us working with you as well, and challenging us too as business owners. So thank you for being here with us today, everyone. I hope you like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you, Terrell. Have a very great day.
Thank you.